Oh, we haven't played anything from Tusk yet.
With Rumours selling so well, was it a lot of pressure put on the group?
The new album was called Tusks.
More edgy, more dirty.
But you don't want to die, neither do I.
Clearly, it was not what they were expecting.
Lindsay experiments with his styles in a way that nobody else ever done.
If you don't let me do it my way, I quit.
Most of Fleetwood Mac's songs are broken-hearted melodies.
But this frail creature is certainly not going to go down to Fleetwood Mac or anybody else.
Cost over $1 million to produce. Expensive retail price, 2 discs.
People can feel things not only through lyrics, but just through the atmosphere of the track.
Everything is done for us. Everything.
People are strong, people are weak, and that's the joy of having someone to bounce off. Find me the biggest brass sound that you can.
Maybe the public needed something like us at the time.
I'm just sick of 90% of the stuff I hear on the radio, and I think everyone else is too.
Talk about Tusk!
Hello, everybody. Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
Hi. This is a mini project that we're going to do.
Okay.
That I've been excited to do for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I have, over the past couple of years, really gotten into Fleetwood Mac.
Okay.
And it's not, I don't think there's even a mystery of why. Like, they have had multiple, like, video clips go viral, even in the past couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, the cranberry juice skater guy to Dreams.
I'm very not online. I don't know any of
you had Silver Springs. People found the clips of Silver Springs, which was very good. Anyway, but I've especially been really struck by their 1979 album Tusk.
Okay.
Because I don't want to call it a puzzle box, because I think I think that ascribes a little too much meaning to the analysis, but it is a rather notorious album.
Okay.
It did sell well. It sold over 4 million copies.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a mixed reception when it first came out. It was a double album, so we've got 20 tracks in front of us. It's long. So that's 2 discs in 1979 when it was vinyl. So you had it. I want to say it cost like $16.50, $17, which to today would be like $60 for an album.
Sure.
Which
yeah.
would be crazy.
Wow.
Along with, the music, I would say is temperamental, is hot and cold.
I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts.
I guess before we get into this, what we're going to do is go through each track of Tusk.
Okay.
And it's not an experiment, but I have manipulated the situation.
Okay.
I've asked Jeff to only really listen to the studio versions
Yes.
of the songs in Tusk. And what I've got is something that they called the Alternate Tusk.
Okay.
So I think this was for World Record Day, or like Free Record Day, like Record Store Day. They had made a release of Tusk called the Alternate Tusk, and that you go to the record store, and that would be what you got that day.
Okay.
And it was every track, all 20 tracks, but using, in most cases, a different take. Or a different recording session.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, the tracks are not very different. It may just sound like another take or different types of arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of these are dramatically different. Like, I don't want this to be like a redemption podcast. This is not like trying to redeem this album. Like,
Okay.
It is what it is. But I think when you hear Tusk and you hear the Alternate Tusk, I think it opens up your mind a little bit on the original songs.
Okay.
And I think it can create a different understanding of them outside of just the one recording. So that's a little bit of like my preamble here. So I did ask you to listen to Tusk before this. We're only going to talk about the first 5 today, but how did you feel listening to the various tracks?
Well,
because this is not, I would say that this is probably not any genre of music I would associate you with. Of like
well,
it is.
I was curious about that at first. When I started listening to it, I was like, "Is this what Bryce thinks I like to listen to?"
Which no, it's totally. It's all selfish. It's completely me.
Okay. Well, I'll say that for my own musical background, I'm very much this kind of 70s classic rock stuff and folk and some of those kind of influences generally isn't something that I gravitate towards. Being a Gen Xer. I really liked the 90s stuff. I like punk rock, I like alternative rock, that kind of stuff. But I have branched out over the years into pretty much everything. And I like some stuff from the 70s, but I like more of the rock from the 70s. So when I first started listening to this, and I'm completely blind on Fleetwood Mac. I mean, of course, I've heard
Dreams.
Yeah, they're big, big singles that they've had over the years. But I've never have listened to an album. I've never sat down and gone into anything outside of the big stuff that you would hear on the radio.
Yeah.
So I think that when I first started listening,
I've given you a bad first impression of this band because my obsession with them has been, oh, I like some songs.
Yeah.
Oh no, these albums are actually just great. They only really make bangers or jams.
Yeah.
Like they're secretly a jam band.
Okay.
But I cut you off.
That makes sense. But so my first impression when I started listening to this was I got really worried because I was like, Bryce has been very cagey about what exactly we're doing here. And he was just like, listen to this Fleetwood Mac album. We're going to talk about it. So I started listening to it. And it's funny that we're doing the first side because every time I got to Sara, I said, my God, can I stop now? Can I? Because that song is very long, and
it is. It feels long.
It feels long.
Yes. That's kind of the only pushback. Actually, you know what? No, I'm seeing that it is 6.
It is 6 minutes
and a half minutes. Okay, you know what?
As opposed to 2 minutes.
I'm gonna reel that one back here, but we'll talk about more about Sara. But yeah, I mean, slow.
Yes.
Atmospheric.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Part of the story of Rumours, the huge album that was right before Tusk, was that it was only a single album, 2 sides, and so a lot of songs were cut for time, were edited down.
Sure.
Right? Stevie Nicks' songs were known for being really, really long, that needed to get cut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the part of the story of this album was they went in open to the idea that they were actually going to do a double album so that there was no issue of like what gets cutting for time, cutting for pop sensibilities.
Okay. I mean, and that comes through. Like I was kind of getting that. Like I've encountered albums like that in the past where, a band gets big enough and then they get the kind of unrestricted artistic freedom to do whatever they want to. And sometimes that works really well. And sometimes you're listening to a song and you're like, I really wish that this was over a little while back.
Because so I also just read Get Tusked.
Okay.
It is a
was that the tagline for the album in the record store, the new album from Fleetwood Mac?
It should have been. That should have been. No, so this was a biography by Ken Kayat and Hernan Rojas, who were engineers / co-producers on the album. So they share a lot of the stories in the studio of recording it. And to say that like excess is the backdrop of all this is like an understatement.
Okay.
The studio that they're recording in, Studio D, is state of the art. To put it very quickly, it's a very expensive, very new studio. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, Fleetwood Mac, because of the way that their business stuff was set up, made a lot of money on Rumours because they were their own managers.
Oh, okay.
And so that meant that when it came time for this, whatever you need, they joked that they were probably the first recording studio to have a keg on tap. They would have a keg of Heineken for the boys. Mm-hmm. Christine would be drinking Cristal champagne, chilled Cristal.
My goodness.
Catering food. It's excess, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that is a big brushstroke here of this sense of unrestriction.
Now, let me ask, because I have some individual thoughts. To continue my story of when I was listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
Just as a brief aside that people might find interesting is that I did message Bryce and say, is it important that I like this? Because I don't really.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to convert you, buddy.
I mean, maybe. The thing is that after that, I focused on the first side, and that was 5 songs. And so I was really able to listen to those over and over again.
And this is the first impression of the album.
Yeah. And I ended up, some of them ended up growing on me. But as I listened to them, And I have a very strange musical background. I used to be a drummer a long time ago. I've kind of know stuff about music, but I've never been the front man. I've never written a song or anything like that. But I've been kind of in it. So I ended up with kind of a bunch of questions about what has happened here. And I think the first question, I mean, and maybe this will be a good jump off point, would be, is the producer different? Is this a different production team than Rumours? Or is there somebody that was there for Rumours that was like cracking the whip to kind of compress stuff that isn't present here? Because my overall first thought when I listened to this was that there was a lot of meandering going on in these songs, which I feel like can sometimes be good and sometimes can frustrate me. But
I would say, I mean, I think in general, most of the personnel is basically the same. I think some of the differences would be the situation, right? When they recorded Rumours, so they recorded Tusk in LA, which is where they generally were based. But when they recorded Rumours, that was in Sausalito near San Francisco. So all 5 of them were kind of displaced equally, if you can think about it like that. And so that's a part of it. I think having to constrict it to one disc instead of opening it up to 2 is a big part of it. There are also stories from the Rumours time of technical issues and reasons that they needed to like redo certain things. But I would say in general, no, the personnel was not different. But on the very first day, this is in the Get Tusked book, but they're describing the first day when the band is getting into the studio and everybody is coming in and they're bringing their tapes of their new songs, and Lindsay, the guitarist, shows up and he's got this new short hairdo. He had the long, curly, like rock god locks for a long time. So he shows up one day, hair cut short, with his new girlfriend in tow, and plays a demo for what I think was The Ledge. And at some point intonates that he wants to guide the direction of the sound for this album. Rather, it's my way or the highway. And that put everyone really off balance. I think there is a bit of cheeriness that was in this homecoming of everybody kind of coming in piece by piece, and then sort of a strange flag in the ground of
start getting the ego power play. I am an artiste, it's my time kind of thing.
And I think on that angle where like Lindsay felt he was a technical necessity because he's gone and said like he was a part of making Rumours what it was, that from day one on this, he felt like he was reinventing himself. And he had this double stress of, I need to be a new man, and I also need to be the shepherd of this album for this band.
Interesting.
So I think that's where some of the intentional the intentional 90 degrees on some of this is.
Okay. I have some more thoughts, but I think they'd probably be better saved for each individual track.
Let's do that and start with our first track then. How about that?
Sure.
So the first one is Over and Over. The very first song. This is a Christine McVie song. Kind of a slower jam. Here, we'll play about a minute of it or so. So, a decisive, I think, opening for the album.
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially when you compare it to the openings of the previous Fleetwood Mac albums, you had Monday Morning, which was a bit of a rollicking sort of folk rock song.
Sure.
And then Secondhand News, which is a rock pop song, very poppy.
Yeah.
And so to start this with Over and Over, which is pretty plodding, I would say, of a beat, but then also like the arrangement of it sounds strange.
It does.
The guitar, the acoustic guitar. There's a lot of guitar on this album that is used almost like an accessory or as an effect, and I think even in this track, that really, I don't know if it's because it's tuned really low or what, but it almost sounds amelodic. It almost sounds like it's just scratching. It's not a guitar. It's 6 nylon strings.
Right. Yeah, I think I did an experiment when I was listening to this song. I listened to it a few times, and then I pulled it up on YouTube, and I listened to it at 1.25 speed, and I found that I really enjoyed it a lot more because I feel like it seems like, I mean, and I don't even know if audiences at the time maybe would think this, it was like listening to a record on the wrong speed. It sounds like it's too slow. Like it sounds like it needs to be either slower even than it is or faster than it is.
Yeah.
Especially because and this is something that most of the songs on this side I feel like suffer from a little bit, where the lyrically and musically it doesn't seem complex enough to demand this level of slow, methodical. And so having it be a very basic song, it comes off as just very,
it's a little amateur,
like white bread. Like there's not a lot of spice to it. The one thing, and I don't know if, this is something that I started hearing last night when I was really drunk and listening to this album.
The way it was meant to be listened to.
The way it was meant to be listened to. The other thing, I don't know whether it's something that's noted in the book, is that I listened to some of their previous songs, and I don't really know very much about Fleetwood Mac.
Sure.
I know that Mick Fleetwood was their drummer. The drums here seem like shoved into a closet somewhere, whereas I listened to just some of the big pop stuff that they had, and those drums are tuned much further forward. Like you really feel it. There's a lot more snap to the snare hits and stuff. They really they feel like they have more of a hand in the song. Like the lyrics come on the beats, it's much more traditionally set up where it follows the drums. Yeah. And here the drums just seem shoved way in the back, shoved way in the back. And they also seem really muted. Like they're barely part of the song. Very slow fills and uncomplicated beats.
And you see that a lot in this album, especially on Lindsay's songs, where the drumming and the bass, the rhythm section, were both really told to keep it very simple to a frustrating level.
Sure.
And so, but it's funny because you're thinking about the part of what they do talk about in the book is kind of the construction of Studio D, partly because it's like a spaceship of a recording studio. It had a big central room that you could put drums in, but you would also have players in there with their amps or their cabinets in another isolated room. So you could think about it like back in the day. So it's I'm going to oversimplify this really a lot. But back in the day, the way you would record music is you and your band would spend a lot of time rehearsing it wherever you could do it for fucking nothing. And then you would rent time in a studio, nailing it. Recording the thing that you had spent a lot of time. Fleetwood Mac famously did not do that. Fleetwood Mac spent a lot of their time writing in the studio, which is why this album was considered the most expensive album at the time.
Okay.
They spent a similar amount of time doing this for Rumours. Mirage, they did the same thing, but they did it in France, and they hated that.
Good Lord.
And so, I I'm a little surprised to hear that, because my sense of that space was it was meant to unify all the players, especially on one of the non-Lindsay songs.
Well, I mean, this is all just kind of conjecture, but I do think that sometimes I've seen scenarios in the past where things work well for a reason, and then you decide, I'm going to break this paradigm by catering to everyone, and then it ends up making an inferior product because there was a better reason to have everybody kind of, you know, in a practice space practicing over and over and over again. And then suddenly if you disconnect this process, then you get a more disconnected. I mean, I think that there's a lot of songs on here that do feel strangely disconnected in ways. Like the vocals will seem disconnected from part of the music, or they just seem more fragmented, where when a band is working well together, there's just a really good feeling of when you feel like all the instruments are you know, in synchronization and everything's going well. And a lot of these, I don't know, maybe it's just because I've just been wish casting based on the things that you're saying, but it almost feels like they were all kind of like, some of this were recorded in very separate ways and then brought together, and that you might be able to feel that because there's less. I don't know. It would be interesting to hear what a live version of this, maybe, if it sounded any different.
And one of the interesting things on that regard, Fleetwood Mac did record a lot of their live shows, but very few songs from Tusk ended up on the set lists or remained on the set lists.
Interesting.
Really, I mean, thinking about it, Tusk itself has been played a lot. Sisters of the Moon, especially at the time, was I mean, Sisters of the Moon live, their live version of it is so amazing. We'll get to that. And then like Sara was performed a bit. So, you know, some of these were performed a bit, but a lot of them I'm not aware of any recordings of them. So, and I
Sara
think over and over.
I think Sara would be a much better live experience than listening to it on an album, because it does go on for a while, but you could see it being the thing that closes out a huge set of this kind of just meandering thing where everybody can kind of, it's also loose enough that I feel like you could add more to it. And maybe that's part of this, is that some of these songs are so basic that if you wanted to add more to it, you definitely could.
That's something that the other thing I'll talk about as far as their live recordings is that the songs that are on here that they did record live, the Lindsay songs that are on here that they recorded live sound great live. I think they sound even better only because they have to really fit within what the 5-piece rock band can do on stage. They sound better live. I think a lot of Tusk also has to do with, if you think of like if you think of like rise and falls of different instruments, types of instruments, around this time, this is the start of the rise of the studio as an instrument, using a studio space as an instrument, having not even digital effects. Like in fact, another great anecdote from the book is that if Tusk came out a little bit sooner, it would have been the first digital album, the first album recorded or replicated digitally. Like one of the early days of the sessions, someone comes in with a digital dubbing machine, and they test it out, and they test it versus tape, and they actually like the digital because it was so accurate to what they were looking for.
Interesting.
So like there is some amount of like bleeding edge here, and also an intentional low fidelity.
So he's using a 4K video recorder to record like
the VHS,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
The screen of a VHS tape. Yeah.
Well, let's take a listen over here to Over and Over, the alternate mix.
Okay. Very excited.
Oh, the one thing I will tell you ahead of time that's not here in this version. The studio version of Over and Over kind of ends with this big swelling crescendo, where the vocals start to get drowned out a little bit. This version doesn't have that.
Okay,
so that's one of the big things you would see here.
You speak out my name, yeah, and I would come running anyway. And I said, could it be me? Could it really, really be? Over and over. Could it really, really be? Whoa, over and over. Oh, I said, could it be me? Could it really, really be? Over and over. Could it really, really be? Don't turn me away. And don't let me down, yeah. What can I do to keep you around?
So that's the alternate over and over.
Okay. I would have a check mark next to that.
Yeah.
I like that quite a bit more.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a subtle sound,
Mhm.
a subtler, little different sound. I think the over and overs at the end, repeating into the end,
Mhm.
I like that way better than them fading out so early in the original song.
Yeah.
I think that kind of reinforces. I feel like that reinforces the content of the song a little bit. Over and over. I'm asking over and over,
Right.
over and over. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's too literal, but I think that's. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. This one is not one that I'm super familiar with, but what I could hear, and it's possible that I just didn't listen to the other version in headphones and didn't zone in on it, but it seemed like the plotting pace of the song was better used here because there was a lot more of everybody. It wasn't just the vocals, but even just the guitar fills in between the individual lines in the beginning were more complex. And then especially as the song goes forward, I felt like, there's a little bit of here's some keyboards for you kind of coming in. Here's like the drums get more interesting towards the end. You even get a little bit of kind of mini bass solo where the bass kind of comes up. And I think that I like that quite a bit more because as a thesis statement, it felt more like, we're using this basic structure, but then we're giving everybody kind of the freedom. It felt like the whole band was represented in the song as opposed to before where it felt very vocals and guitar fronted. Like the other stuff seemed like it was faded way into the background much more. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this I think was one of the earlier songs in their session that they were working with. I think this was one of the 2 songs that Christine had, one of her first songs that she brought in on cassette. But yeah, I think it's such an interesting statement to make this the first track because it is so plodding. It feels just.
I really do think that the whole song would work if it had a little bit higher RPM. If it was just like, you can still have it be very basic, but it's just the tempo of it is too calming.
So maybe one other element here to kind of talk about where Christine, the songwriter, is at this time. During the recording of this album, she is with Dennis Wilson, who was one of the Beach Boys. And Lindsay, especially, was a major Beach Boys fan. And was, I don't know, kind of mouth agape whenever Dennis would come by. But I think that informs a lot of Christine's writing, where her writing is very sweet on this album. Saccharine almost, like, to the point, like Honey High. Honey High is a very catchy song, but I have a lot of problems with that fucking song. But hers are the sort of sweeter songs. So I understand it as a very sentimental song. And maybe this will kind of come up when we get to it on the 4th side, but Never Forget, which ends the album, kind of feels similar. It's not a showstopper.
Yeah.
It's not a big left field hit like Tusk or some of the other more bombastic songs. It actually kind of fits in with Over and Over a little bit in almost a cyclical sense.
Okay. I think that the other thing is that by having a more ambiguous, say, opening statement, I think that it puts a lot of pressure on what comes after that. And not to push too far forward, but quickly, but I'm not a big fan of this,
you don't like The Ledge
song very much. So
okay, well let's play it and get this is only 2 minutes. So
sure.
Not a fan of The Ledge.
Nope. And it's very possible that this is just a personal thing. So what I'll say is that
you don't need to couch it. Like, it is a rather acrid song.
I'm not the biggest fan of the jam band sound.
Yeah.
I also, the first 3 times I heard this, I'm also not a fan of what I would consider the jug band sound. It sounds like a very, I think that the fuzz on the guitar kind of muddies the whole sound. I think it's very basic musically, but then I don't really like the lyrics don't work for me either.
Oh, really? Because
What
they're really biting.
You can love me, baby, but you can't walk out, and I don't understand what that is saying. I might be
Oh,
just too basic
okay.
of a person, but
Sure.
I don't know. The thing is that I wanted more. I wanted more complexity, or I didn't want as much repetition in the lyrics, or take that fuzz. Like one of the things with really complicated studios is you can do really interesting digital effects. You could do left to right, or
Where here, it is. This is still relatively early days of stereo.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's on some of the Lindsay songs, which is what this is. You have a really hard pan on different instruments. The snare is pretty hard in the right ear. The bass is really hard in the left ear. And you keyed into something with the guitar, which is it's so low, it sounds pretty equal to the bass. Like if you kind of listen left ear, right ear, sometimes it's like which one is the bass?
Yeah.
Because it's that like really low and dark sounding. So yeah, this is a Lindsey Buckingham. This is another one of the early songs from the session. Supposedly, this is the song that he went in and played, and they got everybody ready, and they get ready, and then he tells the engineer in the control room, "Great, now flip all of the knobs 180 degrees. I want to do the opposite."
Okay.
And that's a lot of what you get here on the ledge.
Wow.
To talk about the lyrics a little bit and a little bit of what that process looked like. Apparently, again, coming off of Get Tusked, a lot of Lindsay's songs would start off music first, and then the lyrics would slowly come in. You hear on the second disc of Tusk, the bonus disc of demos and stuff that they put out.
Okay.
There are, I want to say, 8 different versions of I Know I'm Not Wrong.
Okay.
Because it was one of the earliest written songs and was one of the last songs that they finished. And you go through the progression of these versions of I Know I'm Not Wrong. And they're all pretty different, especially lyrically. Some of the first one doesn't have any lyrics, but a lot of them is just, like he's just kind of mumbling gibberish just to get through the music of it.
The lorem ipsum of songwriting.
but like that's part of the music writing process.
Sure.
That's just how it goes. Is sometimes you start with the music, sometimes you start with the words.
The few bands that I was in back in high school a million years ago, I found that we were least successful when we started with kind of a fully formed song, or even 50 to 60% of a song, and then asked a poor lyricist to come in and try to graft something on top of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like saying that I can kind of feel that a little bit in this, the ledge, but
also, to talk about lyrics a bit, like I think one of the things that really kind of catches my eye with this whole album is the three very different perspectives that the songwriters have. Christine's is very sweet, and Stevie's, who we'll talk about a little bit later, is much sadder, and Lindsay's is very angry. It is coming from an angry place, and I think especially back in 1979, but I think even today, some of this stuff, some of Lindsay's stuff is, I would feel too embarrassed to do lyrics like this because they're really like you can love me, baby, but you can't walk out. Someone ought to tell you what it's really all about. Like that is the most like dick swinging, like standing and like trying to trying to be the alpha that you can be.
Sure.
And then you tie this into, famously Stevie and Lindsay were a couple for a very long time. They broke up during the making of Rumours. And so now you have this new creative project where they're still in the band together. They're still writing songs in the band together, still performing together.
Sure.
But you're now on the other side of that coin.
God, that must be. I feel bad for Stevie Nicks having to play backup on your ex's breakup processing.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that she got hers in Rumours too. She got Rumours, but yeah. Let's jump into the alternate version here of The Ledge.
Okay, be very interested.
So, The Ledge, another more of a slighter take on the alternate version, but I feel like this is one that is a little less to the extremes.
There's fuzz is definitely reduced on the guitar, which is good. I do think I was thinking while I was listening to that again, I get this impression that the drums are so muted. Like it sounds. I think when I was listening to this the second or third time, the original take, I was asking myself whether they were even using a snare drum, whether they were using like a tom or something in place of a snare drum, because it was so low, and with something like this that has this very high rhythm, I feel like having a staccato kind of snare drum in there would have, really given the audience something to hang on to as you kind of move forward. So
Tusk, one of the infamous things about Tusk is that a lot of it has more found sounds than was known at the time. Like, again, if you were recording audio in the late 70s, you needed to be in a building designed to do it.
Sure.
And so a lot of Tusk, especially again on the Lindsay side, spends a lot of time trying to deal with found sounds. And an empty Kleenex box is famously one of the multitude of found sounds used in this album as a facsimile. Things like slapping a pork chop with a spatula, which I think is part of Tusk. Wait
a minute, a Kleenex box for
a snare.
For a snare?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how you get that kind of thin, papery, like it's not crazy.
Too hollow, too low, no power whatsoever. The
alternate version there also, I think there's less. I think in the original version you can hear more of Stevie in her backup vocals, where this feels very much just Lindsay with the multiple voices that he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Ledge, I like that one. It is. I'm also not like a big what do they call it? Rockabilly. I'm not a super big rockabilly fan. this is like proto rockabilly, or this is like early in that vein. So, hey everybody, just a quick intermission and we'll get back to the music. If you're enjoying Side A, Side B will be released in 2 weeks, but why wait? Listen to all 4 sides now by subscribing on Patreon, patreon.com/LFGX. Get the podcast feed for full-length previews and enhanced audio quality for the biggest, best Two Tusks experience. One more time, patreon.com/LFGX. My name is Bryce Castillo. Check out my marbles racing streams on the website marbles.win or follow me on Twitch at BRYCAS to join in on the fun every Thursday night. My co-host is Jeff S. Thank you to him for joining me here. Please show him some love over on Rage Select on YouTube, where he's been covering new video game releases for over a decade now. That's Rage Select on YouTube or rageselect.com. You're listening to Two Tusks, hosted by Bryce C. and Jeff S., produced by Bryce Castillo. Fleetwood Mac's music, including Tusk Deluxe, Live Deluxe, and Mirage Tour 82 Live, are available everywhere from Warner Records. Now, back to the Tusks. So we had the very frantic The Ledge, but next one is pretty straightforward. A pretty straightforward rock song. Is the duet between Christine and Lindsay. It's "Think About Me." So let's do a little bit of the original here.
Okay.
All it took was a special look, and I felt I knew you before. I didn't mean to love you, didn't think it would work out, but I knew we would be together, and I couldn't wait for more. What can they say? It's not against the law. I don't hold you down. Maybe that's why you're around. But if I'm the one you love, think about me. I believe.
A classic rock jam.
It's my favorite song on this first side.
Yeah.
by a country mile.
It's it really is a classic Fleetwood Mac song, even to the point of like the processing on Christine's vocals, the doubling of her voice, and then blending it into Lindsay's voice. It is sonically very similar to "Don't Stop" from Rumours,
Okay.
where that song is a duet between Lindsay and Christine, but their voices are so similar, and the way that they're doubled, they sound like the same voice. If you're not paying super close attention, you can be like, there's the same voice.
Sure.
To the point here where like you might miss the fact that like it's pretty much all Lindsay singing by the end,
Right.
when it's Christine at the front.
I didn't even realize that when I was listening to it. I'm not familiar enough with either one of their voices to know, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's snappy, it moves, it's got a traditional structure. I like there's one lyric that I have a little bit of difficulty with.
Oh yeah, what is that?
It's the I actually had to look this up because I couldn't really get what I was hearing, but the "If I'm the One You Love" is all kind of jammed
But if I'm the
together.
one you love.
It's a little awkward having that much kind of in that one.
It's kind of a little bit of the country twang you find, the American country in the Mac.
But it's important too, and I'm interested to know if you have a lot of like kind of background for this song, because I really like the content of the song. Like I really like the lyrical content of the song, of this like there's a spark between us, but I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to try to control you. But you know, if you think that we're a thing, you should think about me. And then like, you know, it's kind of a passive ballad, almost a passive love song.
Yeah. So this is Christine did write this one.
Okay.
So it is another kind of sweet, lovey-dovey song. At least in Get Tusked, they don't spend too much time talking about "Think About Me" because this one was recorded pretty traditionally.
Yeah.
Like there was not an element of like, how do we quote unquote messed this up. You know, not saying that that's it, but you know, this really was kind of straightforward, and this was a little later in the recording sessions, so I think there was a sense of like, oh,
Just
okay,
gotta bang out a radio hit,
Yeah.
or you know, we got something here. Let's just put it together the way that we normally do.
Yeah, the one thing they do mention is that it came together pretty quick. The recording of it. In general, to oversimplify the recording process at the time, you and your band would record the full song, and you would do that as many takes as you needed until you had one take that you loved.
Right.
And then you could go in and record overdubs. You could add another guitar,
Right,
while, you know, playing to the track. But the kind of the process that we have today, you would see more of the full band needing to do the performance for the master track versus today, where you would maybe just need
kind of
the rhythm
multi-track
section,
assembly type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You would kind of paint it by layers,
Right. But yeah, no, I mean, just I think it's such a very stark difference between the first two because they're so stripped down, and then in here, I mean, even if you were just to listen to just the bass track, like it's
very like yeah,
it's like
the
everybody's
bass
having like more fun. It feels like here.
Yes, they're having fun.
and then when it comes together, like just sonically and lyrically and everything, it's got some depth to it. It's got some meat to it. It's got, you know, you hear it once and you can sing along to it. Think About Me is
kind of a
easy.
Radio jingle.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, this was one I really liked. Whenever this one came on, I actually was like kind of bouncing my head to it as opposed to trying to like dig into it. So
well, let's listen to the alternate version of Think About Me. The alternate Think About Me. So you don't get any of the vocal doubling with Lindsay, no Lindsay at all. And actually you can hear quite a lot of Stevie's backup vocals.
Yeah.
And they don't sound right. They don't sound like she's singing the right time.
Yeah. There also appears, because that doubling is so singular in the original version. I feel like the music like takes a back seat to more of like the vocal stylings in this. I think that having that doubling, I don't know, it's like somehow that kind of glues the whole sound together. Whereas here, I was mostly just hearing the lyrics. Like the lyrics were very much on Front Street. The singing was very much on Front Street.
Yeah. The other, I think, pretty prominent thing is the addition of I would say it's like a marimba or some sort of chime. Especially, I think it's you can really hear it in the left ear, but almost like a subway door chime. Ding!
Oh, okay.
And I don't even know where that comes from because you wouldn't have done that in the in your master recording.
Yeah.
But so I don't know where that comes from. That's an interesting like addition to the song, and I think not doing the doubling and not doing the vocal merging makes it feel a little strange. I think, but I think it almost. I think to me it kind of justifies the original a little more.
There are parts of it that I like a little bit more. Like I like that I really can hear Christine. The doubling does kind of make it a kind of a nebulous vocal sound. Of course, at the end there was some like organ keyboard kind of. There was this kind of like this one sustained note
in the bridge.
Yeah, and I did not care for that. It felt like a fire alarm was going off or something.
Yeah, I can see that.
All in all, I would say I think that I like the original much more, but it's much more traditional.
This one's a little more slight on that.
Now, in the context of the entire album, I can actually see where that could fit better after the studio versions of Over and Over and The Ledge, just because that is a more experimental version of that. Like it was kind of jarring when I was listening to this to have this kind of, the first two songs that had this kind of loose experimental style, and then like just, boom, top 40s. Now this is what I call Fleetwood Mac comes in on track 3. So
that is a good point because like in another world, you could have made this the first track and it would have been a banger start to this album.
Absolutely.
So maybe not too much to say on this. You want to move on to the next one?
Sure.
All right. So this one is Save Me a Place. This is another Lindsay song. We're going to listen to just a minute of it here.
Don't know why I have to work. Don't know why I can't play. Turn me off, turn me out, but don't turn me away. I'll come running if you love me today.
Okay. So that's a little bit of Save Me a Place here.
Yeah.
A very, I think from out of these 4 songs that we've listened to so far, I think Save Me a Place gives me an environment. I feel like I almost, there's something about the environment of the song that I feel like I understand. From the very beginning where it almost like smash cuts into like the, don't know, like right into the first beat, first song, and it's almost like offbeat, like they hit that first beat and they kind of don't get that first measure really right. And so you almost get, in my head, it's like a campfire song.
Okay.
And you got the guy and he's just strumming along and he's singing. And then when you get to the chorus, you have all of the different voices harmonize at once with all of them doing the vibrato. You know, you got that one, you know, and it's there's just like it's just like a magical, I think, progression between those two. I see it really, or I hear it really clearly of like, okay, this like starts off intentionally amateurish, but also has this like masterwork level of vocal tracking to do. I mean, it could have been one thing to have the two girls as backups. They've done harmonies. They've done very good harmonies in their songwriting before.
Sure. But
to almost do this like barbershop quartet with yourself is, I think that's really impressive. It certainly feels impressive, or at least like it's supposed to say something. It should say something, maybe, but that's. How do you feel about Save Me a Place?
I think I like it more than The Ledge, but it has a lot of strangeness to it that puts me off. Like there's something wrong with the drums. They're not, it sounds like the impression that I would get is of somebody who, this is the first take when somebody's like, I wrote this new guitar thing. Okay, let's give it a shot.
Just
drums,
play a simple,
try to,
and they didn't warm up.
And it keeps kind of getting off a little bit. And I don't know if that's intentional. If it is, I'm not entirely sure what the intention is to jar the sound. It also sounds to me, I think that both with this and with Sara, I don't know if this is the case, but it sounds like these are being played with brushes on the drums.
Sara definitely is. Here, let me play a little clip of this. This one I think might be more of another found sounds sort of thing.
Okay.
I do think we'll kind of listen to this original right before we listen to the alternative, the alternate version. But I think the drums are handled very differently between these two.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you how so, but I do think they feel like they've been handled very differently.
I also think that I'm not sure if I'm spoiling, but I think it would be interesting to hear, because the music in the song is very basic. I think it would be interesting to hear like the Stevie Nicks version, like somebody doing a little bit more flair vocally when you have something so basic. Like some of these,
I mean, yes, it's so basic, but he also does that, this like 5-piece chorus, like. No, but I hear what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know. It could just be that what I'm finding out is that I'm not the biggest fan of Lindsay's vocals.
Yeah,
possibly.
Very possibly. He was of the 3 songwriters that people associate with Fleetwood Mac. He wrote the least number of big hits.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult. There's something about it that's off-putting to me, but I have a hard time kind of expressing it because it is so very basic. So,
okay, so I'm going to play just a little bit more here of Save Me a Place, and then I'm going to go into the alternate.
Okay.
All right, now I'm going to switch.
Can't play. Turn me off, turn me out, but don't turn me away. Say if must I need to be amazed? Say me a place. I'll come running if you love me today. I'll come running if you love me today.
Save Me a Place.
Interesting.
Did you? There's one thing I wanted to see if you noticed.
Okay.
Let me. I'm gonna just play I'm gonna play some more audio here again. Okay.
Sure.
Just.
Don't know why I have to work. Don't know why I have to win.
The key is different.
Oh, okay.
It's really subtle. I just wanted to see if you could pick it up.
Yeah, no, I hear it now that you said it. I kind of felt like I was at the auditory optometrist there for a
A
second.
or B, A or B. But yeah, the alternate version is a slightly higher key,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't actually know if that's because they recorded the master at a lower key, or if it was a speed thing. There was a good amount of like playing with playback speed, especially in some of these other tracks here, as an effect in the songwriting. So I don't know if it's just they stretched it longer or what, but just being at that other key sounds really gentle. I think the processing on it again is a little softer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little more dynamic range. You even have a bit of an intro.
Yeah.
Yeah. A count in and an intro.
It's a lot more traditional. It's a lot less experimental. And I think that, I mean, when you talked about the whole campfire song thing, I think that having it be very straightforward means that the feeling of it was like I could sing along to this, whereas the other version sounded like somebody doing a first take of something.
Interesting.
Where it didn't. The original version was more interesting, but less, because it was rougher. I think that it was harder to kind of go along with it.
Yeah.
It was like you were more being dragged along by it, whereas this one, it was very just, it was kind of repeats the same melody over and over again, and you can kind of go with it. I also think that there was more, I don't know if I'm just imagining things, but if there was more guitar, like I really felt like this was Lindsay standing in the front, playing these guitar parts that accentuate the vocal parts.
That's right.
And then everything else was a little bit in the background. But then because it's such a simple song, I feel like it then lends itself well to that structure. Yeah.
I mean, one of the songs from Rumours was Never Going Back Again, which is all guitar playing. They had recorded it with drums and bass, but they said, no, the guitar part on this is so intricate and great, just do it on its own.
Yeah. Maybe some bongos. Throw some bongos in that song.
Okay. You'll get some bongos soon.
Little bongo solo at some point.
Yeah. It's a really kind of sweet, bittersweet song.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a real sweet one.
Okay.
All right. The last song here from side A Sara, your favorite. Your favorite old Sara.
I have very complicated feelings about Sara.
I'm going to play just a brief bit of Sara here.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of tell you a little bit what to listen in for
Sure.
in the alternate. But the things I would kind of point you to for this right now is listen to the keyboard. It's like a Rhodes style keyboard. You're going to hear it in both of your ears.
Okay.
And then, lyrically and sound-wise, you'll get it. But here's some of Sara from Tusk.
Wait a minute, baby. Stay with me a while. Said you give me life, but you never told me about the fire.
One of the longer songs on the original run for Tusk.
Sure.
It does have the brushes, a kind of a jazz kit of a drum. Sara, the first Stevie Nicks song on the album, fits in a bit of a pattern with some of Stevie's songs of being a little looser. This one I think started off as a poem instead of just as lyrics. So it does have a really loose, almost like progressive style of a structure, especially musically. It just builds and builds and builds and builds until you get to about the halfway point of the song, and it kind of just lets loose that, and you just go back to the drums and the piano, and it lets you go back to building up and up again. Obviously it is a little long, but how do you feel about the song Sara?
Of the 5 songs on the first side, Sara is my second favorite. I actually really like Sara a lot, and I do think that it's very interesting that you go through these other 4 songs that, I mean, I don't know if I have the best cross section of Christine and Lindsay's like vocal stylings, but Stevie Nicks, you recognize when you hear Stevie Nicks.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of interesting how you go this far into the album before you hear Stevie Nicks, because
she's a star at this point.
At this point, it's striking, the difference between her and the vocals on the other songs.
Yeah. The treatment of this song versus the others.
Yeah.
Is a very lush song compared to like Lindsay's very stark songs, and even Christine's songs. I think just because they're slower, they're a little more low key.
Right.
But this one is lush. I think lush can't begin to describe it.
Absolutely. I mean, I also really like the lyrics. Like, I like it's evocative. Stevie Nicks' performance is wonderful. I think the background music is crunchy enough to kind of like get into, like there's something to listen to there, but it's not so overbearing that it then takes away
you can kind of shimmy to it a little bit.
Absolutely. It's got a little bit of a jam.
Sara.
The only problem that I have with the song is that I feel like it needs to stop about halfway through. I'm not a big fan of when songs just keep going and going and going and going. And I love everything about this song except for the fact that it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah.
So Sara, I believe Stevie was writing by the time they started recording for the album. And in Get Tusk, they call it an epic poem. So the first time they record it, They kind of get everybody together. The motherfucker comes in at 16 minutes.
So this is the compromise for me.
This is the cut. This is the
minutes.
cut down version. And I think Stevie's response afterwards was, "That's a good 16. That's a good 16 minutes, though. It's a good 16 minutes, though. Aren't we? Like, I think look, if what they're doing there is bucking trends, I think there very seriously was a part of them, of her and on the rest of the crew of like, can we give this a shake?
Yeah.
Like let's try it. I mean, this 6.5 minute version that they put in the final album, is like, I have very similar feelings, I think, to you on Sara, which is I do love it. On paper, I love a lot of it. I love the jazz drum. It's kind of a crooning sort of song.
Yep.
It's just that progressive style is just big and big and big and big and even the content of the song, the lyrical content of it is very sweet. It's also very sentimental, and yet I do feel like, Sarah's turned on, huh?
Well, it's
too much of a good thing sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the musical portion of it is very much holding up Stevie Nicks to sing this song. And again, you could have a 6-minute song, but I feel like we just need to shift a little bit. We should have a
radio cut.
There should be, if you want to have a song that long, again, it's drinking the same drink over and over again for too long.
Like Bohemian Rhapsody is 3 acts.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's 3 songs, but whatever.
Or I don't know, there's, if I remember correctly, there were some Tool songs on like Anima that were like 8 minutes long, but then they went crazy into instrumental strangeness, and we're going to go over here. Like there's kind of a world where you could have the first part of this song and then maybe some musical transitions, some changes, some solos, a few things. It just kind of feels like it's a good thing. That it's like a great 25 seconds that then just you copied and pasted too many times.
I think honestly, I think in general our feelings over this first side, I think do speak to some of the reception of the album after the fact of like, this kind of feels like 3 solo artists whose music have been put together. It doesn't, and even if they've all worked together, it doesn't necessarily feel like a cohesive band at times.
Like with Sara, I think that, I mean, not to take away from the band members or anything, but I think that some of the musical parts in this song in the outside of the vocals are so simple that you could just have session people doing it. Like,
So to talk a little bit about Sara. So yes, it was this very long 16-some minute recording.
Sure. And then the studio made them cut it down.
they kind in Get Tusk, they kind of skip past this a little bit of just say, and then we cut the song so that Stevie would like how we cut it, this one was one of the songs that was performed during the Tusk Live concerts. It was longer when they performed it because it included more verses, more of the lyrics that got cut. This alternate version that we're going to listen to does include some more verses and some more changes that you would have heard live. For example, one of the lyrics, especially in the original song, it goes, they say it doesn't matter anymore. And in the alternate version, later on in the second half of the song, it would go, it always matters what for. You get a bit of an inversion with the lyrics there.
Sure.
Which is something you can absolutely do on a poem because it's much easier to make inches on a page. But when you're dealing with the final wax, you don't get a lot of chance to be super patient like this.
Hey, you know what? The other thing is talking about that. Like, I have this has brought up so many feelings that I haven't thought about in a long time. But the idea of watching Stevie Nicks do this live it would be a whole different story.
Radiant.
Right. You'd
know,
just be
just
like, I
crooning
want
for
this to
8 minutes.
go on forever.
Yeah.
I dropped my acid 3 hours ago, and like it's really just peaking right now, and I'm just watching Stevie Nicks tell me this story, and I want to live here forever.
It's great. The live recordings from Fleetwood Mac, there are some really transcendental ones. I mean, obviously the 97. We can have a whole other thing about Fleetwood Mac live.
The spinoff podcast,
yeah.
For the alternate podcast, the alternate take of this podcast.
So before we get into the alternate, the other thing I wanted to mention, we talked about the keyboards right before we played. Here you could hear them in both ears, almost like you had two pianos playing. You basically do. So they, when they got their final take, I'm going to oversimplify and paraphrase here just to get this quicker, but Stevie plays keyboard on this. And I guess when they recorded her vocal take, they recorded her with the keyboard. And something with the timing was kind of imperfect. The tempo was sort of imperfect. That's why there's jazz brushes on this instead of drumsticks to keep the timing a little looser.
Okay.
But that doubling that you hear with one keyboard in one ear and one in the other, one of those is Stevie playing that original, and then the other is, I think it's Christine filling in or kind of like accompanying it. And I think they
kind of smoothing it over a little bit.
And I also think if you go back and listen, I think they only kind of do that like in the first verse, right? In the first bit of Sara, that effect of dun, 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 going back and forth left and right because the keys are kind of coordinated a little bit. You don't get as much of that in the second half of the original of Sara.
Okay.
But what you're going to hear in this one is just one voice of keys.
Okay.
And so I think that is what this is, which is at least partly that is some of those original keys. So here we go, the alternate version of Sara.
Okay.
I want to be a star. I don't want to be a cleaning lady. Wait a minute, baby. Stay with me a while. Said you give me life, but you never told me about the fire. Drowning in the sea of love, where everyone would love to drown, but now it's gone. It doesn't matter what for. When you build your house, then call me home. And it was just like a great darwing within the wings of a storm. I think I hadn't met my match. He was singing and undoing, and undoing. Ooh, the laces can have no more, said Sara. You're the poet in my heart, never change, never stop. But now it's gone. It doesn't matter what for. But when you build your house, oh then call me home. Hold on, the night is coming, and it's stalling through for days. I stay home at night all the time. I go anywhere, anywhere, anywhere. Ask me and I'm there. Yeah. Ask me and I'm there. I care. I care. In the sea of love, where everyone would love to drown, but now it's gone. They say it doesn't matter anymore. If you build your house, then please call me home. Sara, you're the poet in my heart, never change, and don't you ever stop. Now it's gone. No, it doesn't
So what if we made your Sara a little longer?
Was that longer?
It was about 2 minutes longer.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Two and a quarter minutes longer.
Yeah, not a
jam.
Not a big fan of that one.
It is very much like a sign of like the Fleetwood Mac is a jam band.
Sure.
Is doing that version of Sara.
Is that where all the ooh-wahs are from?
Ooh-wah. I like the little doo-wop ooh-wahs. I think there's a lot of those little touches like that would have made this album feel retro in 79. Doing a 40s, 50s kind of doo-wop motif would have been a little bit retro.
Interesting.
So we got some of the additional lyrics, but not all of the ones even that made it into the different live versions of Sara. Sara, lyrically speaking, content-wise, it's kind of about multiple things. If you go back and watch like the behind the music or anything on like Stevie Nicks, everyone will very breathlessly, she writes a lot of things. Her songs are about multiple things, and this song is about multiple things.
Okay.
The Sara in it could be Sara Recor, who was one of Stevie Nicks' very close friends.
Okay.
She ended up getting in a relationship with Mick Fleetwood and then marrying him.
Oh, okay.
So there's one part there. Part of the male imagery in Sara is Mick Fleetwood because Stevie had been in a relationship with him previously.
Okay.
Very briefly. So the dark wing within a dark wing, he was the protection within the storm of Fleetwood Mac, supposedly.
Interesting. Okay.
The last kind of element here in Sara was that Sara would have been the name of the child Stevie Nicks would have had. Semicolon, it seems like Stevie Nicks had an abortion around this time.
Okay.
To continue her career, any number of reasons why, but
sure.
There's a lot there in Sara. I think you see a lot of lushness and higher production in the songs that are not Lindsay's, and I think Sara is like a crown jewel of that. Of like very, very. It seems very intricate, but I also think there's a chance that it's just really good.
Yeah.
They just did it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was struck by you pointing out the keyboards, and the fact that the doubling wasn't there to smooth it out meant that it was a lot harsher. It felt like it was interrupting the song. In fact, I think that every part of this alternate track felt like when I first listened to this, it seemed like, this is if you like Stevie Nicks, you're really going to like this song. And if you don't, that's what's here. That's what's on the menu today is Stevie Nicks. But between the initial keyboards not being smoothed out and the accompanying vocals that they added in seemed superfluous and kind of interrupting, like just drawing focus away from right, exactly. The first time the ooh-ahs came in, my eyebrows went up because I was like, what is this for? She's still talking about, like, she's giving her TED talk and you're just over here. Right, yeah. So I think that, like, while you can see, I think this is one of those things where having it stripped down and even adding to it with the other keyboards in order to smooth out the overall production, the original version I think is far superior, or at least it was for me.
This is one where like solving the problem of the track was the right thing to do.
Yes.
Was kind of like all you needed to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for side A.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
I really
no problem.
appreciate it. I hope you get a little bit of a new perspective.
I did.
On the band.
I did. There was some interesting stuff in here. I mean, it wasn't all for me, but I like listening to a lot of different types of music, even if they aren't for me.
Yeah.
So
I would say in the spectrum of like weird stuff I could have given you.
Yeah.
This is not that far up on the weirdness scale. This is all in English.
Sure.
So, well, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.
it.